The sleek black SUV came to a gentle stop at the corner of a bustling city street, where shadows from tall trees stretched across the sidewalk. Inside the vehicle, Daniel Rivers sat behind the wheel in a crisp gray suit, his silk tie knotted with exact precision. He looked like he had just left a boardroom, though he had only been to the bookstore with his son. "Dad," Cris was saying from the back seat, flipping excitedly through a new comic book, "this superhero finds out he has a long-lost brother. They meet again and end up saving the whole city together." Daniel chuckled softly. He lived for these moments. Brief, fragile interludes in a life dominated by stock forecasts, mergers, and press conferences. Chris's voice grounded him, reminded him that not everything could be measured in numbers. Then, abruptly, Cris went quiet, his eyes locked on something outside. "Dad," he said, more serious now, pointing out the window, "that's my brother." Daniel raised his eyebrows and followed his son's gaze. Beneath the shade of a large oak tree, huddled beside a battered cardboard box, sat a boy around 6 or 7. His clothes were torn, hair matted and dusty, bare feet stained with the grime of the street. Yet his eyes were bright, almost defiant. "What are you talking about, Cris?" Daniel asked, his voice lined with mild discomfort. "I'm serious," Cris replied. "He looks just like me." "Exactly." Daniel let out a tight laugh. "Come on, people in this city look alike all the time." "No, not like this," Cris insisted. "It's like looking at a mirror." Daniel turned to look again. This time, his chest tightened. The boy's light brown curls, the small, straight nose, those amber-colored eyes. Eyes Daniel had seen every day for 8 years in Chris's face. He gripped the steering wheel, something unexplainable stirring in his chest. "Wait here," he said, and stepped out of the car. His polished leather shoes clicked sharply against the uneven pavement. The glint of his luxury watch caught the sun, a striking contrast to the frayed shoelace lying on the sidewalk near the boy. Daniel crouched down, just enough to meet the boy's eyes. "What's your name?" "Liam," the boy replied, calm and steady. "Where are your parents?" "My mom's dead. I don't have a dad." Daniel froze. The weight of those words crushed the air around him. In that moment, all his wealth, status, and tailored perfection meant nothing, because this boy, silent, grimy, and motionless, held his gaze with a quiet dignity that Daniel couldn't ignore. Daniel said nothing as he returned to the car. His hands rested on the steering wheel, but he didn't move. He stared ahead through the windshield, eyes unblinking, as if the world outside had vanished. Cris glanced at him, hesitated. Something in his father's silence, something heavy and unfamiliar, kept him quiet. "We're not talking about this again, understood?" Daniel said, voice low, clipped. Cris nodded, barely noticeable. The air inside the car grew thick, unmoving. As they drove, Daniel felt something tightening around his chest. The boy, Liam, those eyes. And then, like a dark tide rising, old memories surged back. Elena Cris, he remembered that rainy night clearly. The night he returned from a long business trip, half drunk, the house unusually silent. Elena was there, wiping the hallway floor. Her eyes were red, but she greeted him politely. Daniel didn't know what led to it. Perhaps her sadness mirrored his own. Perhaps it was loneliness colliding. But that night, they had slept together. Just once. And neither spoke of it again. After that, Elena grew more distant. She remained diligent, but quiet. A few months later, during a petty argument, Daniel, stressed from work, asked her to leave. She didn't protest, she simply nodded and walked away. He had never revisited that night, never questioned it, until now, until Liam's eyes looked into his. Back home, Daniel went straight to his study. He opened the old filing cabinet and rifled through the folders, as though digging through dust-covered guilt. Elena Cris. Employment terminated. November 7 years ago. He froze. His grip on the folder tightened. He scanned the sheet. Her phone number, disconnected. Her address, a worn-down boarding house on the southern edge of the city. Without a second thought, he reached for his phone and called his driver. "I need to go to this address right now." Less than 30 minutes later, the car pulled up in front of a run-down boarding house on the southern edge of the city. The walls were stained, wooden doors warped, and the hallway smelled of dampness and mold. Daniel stepped out, his expensive suit completely out of place in the crumbling surroundings. He walked to the last door in the corridor and knocked. An older woman opened it, eyes guarded, lips tight. "Excuse me," Daniel began. "I'm looking for someone named Elena Cris." She looked him up and down, then let out a quiet sigh. "Elena's gone. Passed away 2 months ago, pneumonia." Daniel froze. His heart slammed in his chest. "And? The child? Her son?" "Liam. He stayed here for a while. I let him sleep in my room because I felt bad. But then he ran off, said he'd rather live alone than be taken somewhere without his mother." Her voice wasn't cruel, just plain, stripped of sentiment. No one had come for him. No family, no calls. No one cared. "And who are you?" she asked. Daniel opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The answer lodged somewhere deep in his throat. He simply shook his head, gave a slight nod, and walked away, like a man unsure of where he stood. Liam had lost his mother, and maybe, just maybe, that child was his son. The next morning, Daniel woke early. Sleep had escaped him. All night, Liam's face kept returning to him, those amber eyes, so familiar, yet only now truly seen. He called his private attorney. "I need to locate a child. His name is Liam Cris, around 7 years old. He's living on the streets." "Is he your son?" the lawyer asked. Daniel hesitated. "I don't know, but I need to find out." With a few calls, surveillance footage, and a bit of luck, they located Liam by the afternoon, sitting near a busy downtown intersection, beside that same battered cardboard box. He hadn't moved much, as if he'd been waiting. Daniel went alone. No driver, no guards. He knelt in front of the boy. "Liam," he said gently, "do you remember Elena, your mother?" Liam nodded, didn't blink. "She used to work in my house, many years ago." Silence. Daniel exhaled. "It's possible. I'm your father." Liam said nothing, just stared, not believing, not denying. "I could take you for a test to know for sure." "I don't go with strangers," Liam replied flatly. "You're right," Daniel nodded. "Then can I bring you something to eat?" Liam hesitated, then gave a small nod. They ate tacos from a food cart nearby. Liam devoured them like he hadn't eaten properly in days. Daniel didn't ask more. He just watched, quietly hoping, praying that this boy was his son. And if he wasn't, then he would still be someone Daniel couldn't turn away from. Not anymore. After their quiet meal on the street corner, Daniel didn't rush the conversation. Once Liam had finished the last bite of his taco, Daniel leaned forward, voice low. "You don't have to trust me tonight," he said. "But if you're willing, I'd like to take you home. Just for one night. It's safe there. There's a bed, a blanket. No one will ask questions unless you want to talk." Liam stared down at his hands, still clutching the empty soda can. He didn't nod, didn't shake his head. But when Daniel stood up and gently said, "Let's go," Liam followed, slowly, but without hesitation. The car moved quietly through the city, now glowing under evening lights. Liam sat in the back seat, silent. Daniel glanced at him in the rearview mirror, uncertain but hopeful. The house emerged like a beacon in the dark. When the door opened, warm golden light spilled outward, too gentle, too foreign, too unlike the nights Liam had known. He stood in the doorway, hesitant. Then a voice called out, "I told you, you're my brother." It was Cris. He ran up, holding a toy in one hand, his smile wide and free of caution. Liam didn't answer, but something in his eyes softened. He stepped in slowly, each step cautious, as if afraid to break something that wasn't his. Daniel showed Liam to the guest room. It was neat, with crisp white sheets, a reading lamp, and a small wardrobe. "You can stay here tonight," Daniel said, voice calm. "If you need anything, just ask." Liam nodded silently. That night, he didn't sleep much, but when Cris knocked softly and whispered, "Want to play Lego?" he opened the door. The two boys sat on the floor. They didn't talk much, but quietly pieced together a tiny car. And for the first time in a long while, Liam didn't feel completely alone. The next morning, Liam sat on the edge of the bed, legs gently swinging. Morning light filtered through the window, painting soft gold across his lowered face. He hadn't slept much. Even with clean sheets and a warm room, he kept the habit of half sleep, as if he might be shaken awake and sent away at any moment. Daniel knocked lightly before entering, carrying a tray of toast and milk. "Are you hungry?" he asked. Liam shook his head, but the way his eyes glanced at the milk said otherwise. Daniel sat down, keeping a respectful distance. "I know everything is happening too fast," he said. "You're not used to this, neither am I." Liam looked down at his hands. If you really are my dad, then what?" he asked softly, almost afraid to hear the answer. "Then I'm not leaving," Daniel replied without pause. "Not this time." "And if you're not?" Daniel took a breath. "Then you can still stay, for as long as you want." Liam bit his lip. "Everyone says that, then they leave." Daniel leaned forward and gently touched the boy's shoulder. "I won't promise anything I can't keep, but I want the chance to prove it. One day at a time." For the first time, Liam didn't pull away from the touch. That afternoon, with sunlight stretching across the doorstep, Daniel sat across from Liam in the quiet of the living room. The house was still, broken only by the steady tick of the wall clock. "Liam," he said softly after a long pause, "if you're ready, I'd like to do a DNA test." The boy looked up at him. His eyes were no longer guarded, but still wary. He didn't answer right away. "I won't force anything," Daniel added, "but if you agree, we'll know for sure." Liam squeezed his small hands. Then slowly he nodded. The next morning, they went to the hospital. Liam sat beside Daniel in the sterile exam room, legs swinging off the chair, eyes fixed on the ceiling. When the nurse entered with the kit, he tensed. Instinctively. "Just a little," Daniel reassured him. "It'll be quick." Liam said nothing. But when the needle approached, he extended his arm, clenched his fist tight, and bit his lip. A single tear rolled down his cheek, but he made no sound. Daniel never looked away. A part of him wanted to pull the boy close. Another part feared, if the result said otherwise, could he still love Liam the same way? 3 days later, Daniel sat alone in his office, staring out at the city skyline. The desk was tidy, a cold cup of coffee sat untouched, the phone silent. Until it rang. "Mr. Rivers," said a voice from the lab, "the results are in. There's a 99.9% genetic match. The boy is your biological son." Daniel didn't speak. He set the phone down, gripped the armrests of his chair. Then he bowed his head. Tears spilled. Not dramatic, not loud, just quiet rivers down the face of a man who once thought he had everything. And for the first time in years, he realized this wasn't about proving bloodlines. It was about making peace with the part of himself he had buried long ago. Now he understood he'd been missing the one thing that truly mattered. Daniel remained in his office long after the call ended. The DNA results sat motionless on his desk, but he didn't need them anymore. He had known the truth the moment he looked into Liam's eyes. He was the boy's father. That evening, Daniel didn't say a word. He stood quietly outside the living room, watching Liam sit beside Cris, quietly building a puzzle. The boy smiled, a real smile, the first Daniel had ever seen. He knew then, this truth couldn't stay buried. The next morning, his lawyer called. "Now that the results confirmed, we can keep this private, at least until the legal process is done." "No," Daniel replied. "I'm not hiding my son. Not after he's been hidden from me all these years." He reached out to a trusted journalist, not to cause a scandal, but to tell the truth. The interview was simple. No set, no lights, just Daniel, a chair, and a camera. I have a son. His name is Liam Cruz. I didn't know he existed until a few days ago. His mother, Elena Cruz, worked in my home. She's gone now. And I didn't know." Daniel paused, his eyes locked on the lens. "I'm not here to make excuses. I just want to do what's right, not for my image, but for a child who deserves to be seen." That morning, Clara, the longtime housekeeper, knocked on Daniel's office door. "This was left at the gate," she said, placing an old cardboard box on his desk. Daniel opened it. Inside were a folded letter, a few childlike drawings, and a small blue USB stick. The handwriting on the letter made his hands tremble. "If you're reading this, maybe you found Liam, Elena." Daniel said nothing. He plugged the USB into his computer. The screen lit up with a simple, unedited video. It was Elena. Her face was tired, worn, but her eyes were steady. "Hi, Daniel," she began. "If you're watching this, it means you've found our son." Daniel gripped the arm of his chair. Liam stood beside the desk, silent. "I don't need anything. I don't want anything. I just want him to know he wasn't abandoned, that he has a father, even if that father didn't know the truth." Tears welled in Liam's eyes. He turned away, but Daniel rested a hand gently on his shoulder. "When I lost my voice," Elena said, "I hoped this video would speak for me." The screen went black, nothing more, just the silence that filled the room. Liam whispered, barely audible, "She always knew I'd end up alone." "No," Daniel replied softly. "She knew I would find you." After the video ended, Liam said nothing the entire afternoon. He sat in the corner of his room, eyes quiet as still water, but Daniel knew, inside, waves were crashing. Cris was the first to walk in. He brought 2 mugs of cocoa and a crumpled box of cookies. No questions, no comfort words. He just sat beside Liam, nudging one mug toward him. "Dad always forgets the sugar," Cris whispered, "so I snuck in an extra spoon." Liam pressed his lips together, then picked up the mug. No words. But this time, he didn't turn away. A few days later, whispers started at school. Daniel's interview had gone public. Liam grew quieter. In the hallways, there were looks, murmurs. Someone called him the kid from the news. Liam stood still, didn't respond. His eyes dropped, as if he'd already grown used to being on the outside. But Cris didn't stand still. When a classmate snickered and muttered, "So you're the maid's kid?" Cris stepped forward. No shouting, no fists. Just one sentence. "If you're smart enough to read, you should be kind enough to shut up." The other kids backed off, embarrassed. Liam looked at Cris, startled and quietly relieved. That night, as they lay on the living room rug, heads resting close, Liam asked softly, "Why did you do that? Weren't you afraid they'd hate you too?" Cris shrugged. "Because I have a brother now, and I don't pick him for being perfect. I pick him because he's family." For the first time, Liam laughed, just a little, but it was real. After that first real laugh, Liam and Cris stayed on the rug in the living room. Most of the lights had been turned off, leaving only a soft glow from the hallway, just enough to see eyes that hadn't closed yet. Cry lay on his side, one hand behind his head. "Do you miss your mom?" he asked, voice barely more than a breath. Liam was quiet for a few seconds. "Yeah, a lot. My mom died when I was really little. I don't remember her face, just that someone used to sing at night, and her hair smelled like jasmine." Liam turned toward him. "My mom used to sing Estrella Lita, but I don't remember the melody anymore. Sometimes I hear her voice in dreams, but when I wake up, it's gone." Cris closed his eyes gently. "That's okay. I think your mom's still here, somehow. Maybe inside you. Like, when you protect me, I feel safe. Like being hugged again." Liam swallowed hard, said nothing. Then, after a pause, he asked, "Do you think Dad's really a good person?" Cris nodded without hesitation. "I think he's trying. We've never really had a dad before, either of us, but if we're going to start now, I think this is a good place to start." Liam smiled again, softer this time. He pulled a small blanket over both of them. "Then let's start together, okay?" Cris answered with a quiet nod in the dark. Together. The family day event was held in the school's main auditorium, rows of parents seated under warm lights. Quiet cameras captured the moments. Daniel sat in the front row, tie neatly pressed, hands clasped together. Next to him, Cris kept waving from the side. "You've got this." Liam's name was called. He walked onto the stage, stepped slow at first, the lights glaring in his eyes. But he didn't flinch. He didn't look down. He stood tall, placed his paper on the podium, and didn't read from it. "Hi, everyone," Liam began, his voice small but steady. "My name is Liam, and today I want to talk about family." A pause. Family doesn't always start the right way. Sometimes you don't know who anyone is. Sometimes you think you'll be alone forever. He glanced at the front row where Daniel sat, eyes quietly brimming. But then someone finds you, and they don't walk away. He turned toward Cris, offering a small smile. Someone calls you their brother, even if you're not ready. Someone makes breakfast, even when they don't have to. Someone doesn't know how to be a dad, but tries anyway. And then you realize you don't need a perfect family, just one that feels like yours. Applause filled the room, but Liam stepped down quietly, straight into Daniel's arms. "How did I do?" he asked. Daniel choked up. "You made the world go silent, just to hear you speak." Then, barely above a whisper, "And I've never been prouder of anything in my life." A few weeks after Family Day, Daniel sat in his lawyer's office. Before him lay a fresh set of documents, neatly compiled, officially sealed. In the top left corner, a new name was printed. Liam Rivers. He ran a finger gently over the final signature, not out of doubt, but reverence. That afternoon, when Liam came home from school, Daniel called him over and handed him the stamped paper. "You carry my name now," he said, placing a steady hand on the boy's shoulder. Liam held the paper, reading it slowly. Then he looked up and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up." Daniel smiled. There was never a reason to. That evening, the three of them, Daniel, Cris, and Liam, sat around the dinner table. Nothing fancy. Spaghetti, salad, and a lopsided chocolate cake Cris had made himself. Liam laughed the whole meal, not because of anything special, but because everything felt real. After dinner, while Daniel was washing dishes, Liam walked over, holding a photo. It was his mother, Elena, hugging him as a toddler. "I want to put this in the living room. Is that okay?" Daniel nodded without hesitation. "This is your home," he said, "and anyone important to you is important to me." One Saturday morning, Liam woke not because of cold or traffic or the fear someone might steal his spot. He woke to sounds. Cris singing nonsense in the bathroom, spoons tapping gently against pots in the kitchen, Daniel's voice calling up the stairs, deep and clear. "Pasta's almost ready." Liam opened his eyes without tension in his chest, just one feeling. He was allowed to be here. He tiptoed downstairs, hair messy, pajama shirt crooked, barefoot. Daniel turned, saw him, and smiled. "Morning, son." Liam nodded, lips curving slightly. The way Daniel called him son no longer felt strange. Now it felt like the name he'd been waiting to hear his whole life. That afternoon, the three of them sprawled across the living room floor. Cris leaned against Liam's side. Daniel sipped coffee while flipping through a book. Liam asked softly, "Do you think my mom can see us?" Daniel paused, then answered, "I don't know. But if she can, I think she's smiling." Liam nodded, then closed his eyes. For the first time in a long while, he felt no need to run, no need to be brave. Because finally, after everything, he was home. And tomorrow could be anything. But for the first time, Liam knew one thing for sure. He wouldn't be the boy on the sidewalk anymore. He belonged.